Netflix one says, "Thank you, everyone's just wilding, especially them Boruto fans. Kaguya is on a whole different level." And I completely agree. Kaguya is one of those characters. She was just undefeatable. If not for the Six Pass Shibaku Tensei, there was no way they were going to beat her. And that was the only form of death which was suitable for Kaguya. The fact that there are people on the internet saying you could beat her with ease is laughable. Some people always think that the next villain is always the stronger threat or the better threat, but that simply isn't the case, or not always the case, shall I say. How do we know that having a vessel doesn't make them stronger? Momoshiki seemed very OP in Boruto's body. That's simply because Momoshiki is stronger than Boruto. Let's not forget the only reason Boruto won against Momoshiki is because he borrowed a Rasengan as well as Momoshiki was distracted. Momoshiki took over Boruto's body, siphoned a bit of chakra from Naruto and got the job done. I don't think it means he's OP because he is in a vessel. I believe he is OP because Momoshiki himself is quite strong as a person and someone like Boro is simply not a match for him at all. What we know about a vessel is that the Ōtsutsuki use it as a backup file, right? So the karma is a backup file, so they basically take over or possess someone's body, and based on how good the vessel is how much of the original power they can restore. So the quality of the vessel matters. So in other words, if they pick someone that isn't very strong or possibly isn't compatible, then they might end up not having their full power and thus they might be really weak. For example, Isshiki Ōtsutsuki taking over Jigen's body. Jigen's body is simply cannot handle Ishiki's full power. So because of that, Isshiki has to now transfer to someone who is slightly more compatible, which is Kawaki. Right, it doesn't necessarily make him OP, it's just picking a body that you're gonna reincarnate into that can handle your full power. So in a way, if you are an Ōtsutsuki and you are already overpowered, for example, Isshiki, you need to get a vessel, or if you're stealing someone's body, you need to make sure that as you're trying to restore yourself inside that body, that body can take over your whole power, your original power that you previously had. And if it can't, then you won't have your original power and you will be weak. Therefore, you need to find a vessel that can retain all your abilities and powers. I think Kaguya has more raw power and more overpowered abilities, but she is not as proficient in using them. Characters like Prime Hagoromo or Momoshiki could beat her because they can use the power more efficiently. Kaguya is a powerhouse but not really a fighter. I agree with this simply due to the fact that Kaguya, although she is really overpowered and has overpowered abilities, she even had Black Zetsu telling her what to do at certain points. I believe this is a problem for most Ōtsutsuki in general. I mean, look at what they have. They have a Rinnegan, right? Not just, Kaguya doesn't have just a Rinnegan, she has a Sharinnegan, a Kekemura, right? So if you look at all the previous users of a Rinnegan that we've seen so far, let's say for example, let's take Pain for example, and all how many powers and abilities he was able to use using the Rinnegan, right? And here's the thing as well, he wasn't the original owner of the Rinnegan. Let's look at Madara and look at all the abilities he was able to use using the Rinnegan, and let's compare it to the original people who are of course the Ōtsutsuki. They seem to all together struggle to use abilities of the Rinnegan. They all have the power, but they all lack the skill to use it. The Rinnegan has many different abilities. It has limbo, it has dimension travel, it has soul resurrection, push, pull, and many more abilities. If the Ōtsutsuki actually managed to be able to utilize all these abilities and utilize the Rinnegan to its full effect, I believe they would really deserve the title of gods, and they would literally be unbeatable. If the Ōtsutsuki used the Rinnegan the same way Nagato and Madara used it, there is no way anyone will be able to stop them. They can barely even use the Byakugan as good as the Hyuga can use it. So they all have a lot of brute power and raw power. When it comes to skill, I think they all commonly lack that, except from Isshiki, who is really good at taijutsu, and I believe we haven't seen the rest of what he can possibly do due to the fact that he is limited being in Jigen's body. We cannot keep saying these things without taking into account that Naruto and Sasuke are significantly stronger than they were in the Kaguya fight. It's not the same fight or playing field. I get what you're saying, but it simply doesn't work that way. On top of the fact that Naruto was on the other side, who he planned to free and fight them with, so again, doesn't make sense to think about it like that. I get your point, but I honestly don't think they've gotten that much significantly stronger for the reasons which I'm going to say right now. First of all, Sasuke doesn't have 2 arms, he has only 1. Okay, so that's a handicap, okay? So because of that, he's not fighting to his full potential. Neither is Naruto. Naruto up until this point in the manga has never fought in his strongest form, right? Which is the 6-pack techniques, which is where the Godama, which if you don't know what that means the black balls that fly around him, right, with the 6-packs, Magatama drawn in his back. So that's the 6-pack technique. Naruto didn't even bother to deploy that technique against Momoshiki, right? So even if these guys have managed to get stronger, they are still not fighting at the strongest, because Momoshiki just simply isn't that much of a threat. Momoshiki simply got killed, right? That if they tried to deploy the same technique or the same trick against Kaguya, that would not have run well, and they would have run the risk of getting killed, even though they've gotten slightly stronger. If there was a fight against Kaguya, Naruto would simply have to go and gather the tailed beast again, absorbing the power so he can activate the 6-pack technique so he can fight against Kaguya, right? And Sasuke would have to go and get his arm back. Let's look at Jigen. They got beat up by Jigen so bad, and here's the thing as well, Jigen wasn't even in his full power, or shall I say Isshiki Ōtsutsuki wasn't in with his full power, or didn't have his full power, because he was stuck inside Jigen, and Jigen's body just doesn't give him access to his full power, and therefore he can't pretty much fight to his fullest potential, right? They got beat by him, right? And the thing about that is Jigen is so strong that the only way Kaguya could kill him or try to kill him is off guard, right? So if they're going to beat Kaguya, there's no way they're going to be able to beat Jigen, right? So if they were able to deal with Jigen, then I would successfully say, okay, maybe they've gotten strong to the point where they might actually be able to beat Kaguya or be able to stand against her for a while longer. But I simply don't think that is going to be the case here. All this information you just gave are just fart in the wind. Go back and see Kaguya's feat in Naruto against Hagoromo, Hamura, and the arc war, the war arc, I suppose he's trying to say. Plus now there is Boruto, which he decimated Isshiki in his very own body in half. LOL. First of all, that whole Hagoromo's adventures and Kaguya's whole life story in the anime, that was all filler. All done by Studio Perion, right? And her decimating Isshiki Ōtsutsuki, that in the manga it says that Kaguya suddenly turned against Isshiki. So what I'm thinking there is she probably attacked him or caught him off guard and by surprise, and that's how Isshiki lost that fight. Based on that passage alone, we can pretty much speculate that Kaguya may not necessarily be stronger than Isshiki Ōtsutsuki. It might be because she might have plotted this for a long time and probably sought out all of his weaknesses, and then out of nowhere suddenly attacked him. And because those are his weaknesses and he wasn't prepared for that, he just simply couldn't fight back, and he had to retreat, regroup, and re-strategize. Let's also not forget that Otsutsukis have rules. They're not allowed to kill each other. You see what I'm saying? So they're not allowed to kill other clan members. So the fact that Kaguya suddenly attacked, I'm sure Isshiki wasn't expecting that at all. So that's why they were after her. Whatever she did, it was clearly unacceptable according to the clan's laws. You're trying to say that Kaguya is really strong, and I completely agree. The threat refers to the Otsutsuki trio combined, so technically it would take all 3 of them, Momoshiki, Isshiki, and Urashiki, to defeat Kaguya. I agree with that, but I don't think it's just the trio. I think it's the whole clan. Kaguya betrayed a whole legion of Otsutsuki. No matter how many there are, they will all eventually come after her anyway. Hopefully Naruto and Sasuke do not die. If they are in another dimension, hopefully Hagoromo comes back and gives them even stronger powers to help Boruto. I think that Hagoromo is the only one stronger than Isshiki. I respectfully disagree with that, and these are my reasons. During Hagoromo's fight against Kaguya, first of all, he wasn't alone. He had his brother to support him, and both together they couldn't physically kill Kaguya. They had to use another form of killing, which is basically sealing her away. That was the only way they were able to stop Kaguya. Now, when it comes to Kaguya and Isshiki, Kaguya suddenly attacked Isshiki, meaning that he was completely off guard, or I'm assuming that he was completely off guard, and then ran off to earth. I believe that if Kaguya, however, did go against Isshiki fairly 1-to-1, I believe there was a high chance that she might have lost because she suddenly attacked. So I'm assuming again that it could have been a sneak attack. So if Kaguya's only way of winning against Isshiki was a sneak attack, then that must mean that Isshiki is quite strong, or even stronger than Kaguya. So if Hagoromo couldn't beat Kaguya, Hagoromo and his brother combined couldn't beat Kaguya, there is no way they're going to beat someone like Isshiki. And here's the thing, Hagoromo and Hamura would not have had a lot of ninjutsu abilities back in the day, since ninjutsu was fairly new, right? Not as advanced as it currently is in the current timeline. So the only way Hagoromo and Hamura could have won against Kaguya is by sheer power of the chakra which they use, combined as well with the seal, the six paths Shibaku Tensei.